Paddy Pimblett is undoubtedly the breakout star of 2021, an instantly magnetic character who had the look, the one-liners, and the finishing ability to make a name for himself. Sure, he takes a few too many shots to the chin, but love him or hate him, it's hard to deny that Paddy Pimblett's run in the UFC has been a lot of fun. With that in mind, we're going to be taking a look at 10 moments that really stood out since his professional debut. These are 10 times Paddy Pimblett shocked the MMA world. A viral hit. If you aren't a big fan of the European MMA scene, chances are that you've never really heard of Paddy Pimblett until he was much younger. But in the very early days of his MMA career, he managed to shoot to viral fame after securing an incredibly rare flying triangle choke over Dougie Scott. What's crazy here though is that Pimblett did this just after one professional fight, marking his second walk to the cage with an insane flying triangle submission. At that point, no one really knew who Paddy was, apart from some of his die-hard supporters in his hometown of Liverpool. But once again, this green young prospect managed to secure this flashy submission. It became clear that England had a future star in their hands. The question now is just how far Paddy can actually take it. Early signs. This dude has been a pretty huge star for about 5 years now. What's crazy about Paddy though is that his first walk to the UFC cage was as far as his first brush with major fan expectation and pressure. In fact, prior to signing with the world's biggest MMA promotion, Pimblett already headlined and sold out of his local Echo Arena, an 11,000-seater venue that he had graced with his presence on many different occasions. As much as stepping into the UFC was always going to be a shock to the system, if you think Paddy wasn't used to having his name in the lights, think again. The rebound. What some of you might not know is that Paddy had been forced to deal with quite a lot of adversity already in his career. During the middle portion of his time in Cage Warriors, Pimblett came across two fighters who were well on their way to the big leagues, Soren Bach and Nad Narimani, losing in the title fights to the future Bellator and UFC talents. At that point in his career, it seemed like Pimblett was on something of a crossroads, a major attraction at home, but unable to find a form needed to break through to the higher levels. Thankfully, he managed to rebound from his lightweight title loss with 2 straight first-round finishes, a pair of wins that earned him a spot in the UFC. Now firmly rostered within the UFC ranks, Paddy Pimblett just needs to produce more of the same to ensure that he reaches his clear potential over the coming years. His debut. With all of the pressure in the world on his shoulders, this young prospect was set up for a showdown against Luigi Vendramini in the hopes of opening his UFC account for a win. Those of us who had watched him during his time in Cage Warriors understandably thought that Pimblett would opt for a grappling-heavy approach, playing to his strengths to get off to a good start. But no, Pimblett shocked us all by deciding to dive headfirst into the fire with Vendramini, almost getting knocked out in the process with a shot like that would have sent lightweights to the mat. But Paddy proved his toughness in the end, outlasting Vendramini on his way to a stunning first-round knockout. Pimblett had arrived to the big stage with a statement victory to show for it. Scousers don't get knocked out. These days, having a catchphrase is almost expected of you if you're trying to establish yourself as a major star within the UFC. And while the fans can spot a tryhard from a mile away, every now and then Conor McGregor or Khamzat Chimaev will come along with a soundbite for the ages. And for Paddy, it didn't take long for him to craft his own slogan, proudly telling Michael Bisping after his UFC debut that Scousers don't get knocked out, responding to questions about his striking defense being an issue by giving it props to his chin for its sturdiness. And in that moment, Paddy Pimblett found his catchphrase as he boldly promised the world that he would never suffer a knockout defeat. Sure, it sounds pretty cool, but has he ever watched Jorge Masvidal versus Darren Till? Because that sure looked like his Scouser getting knocked out if you ask us.
You know me saying, lad, I'm a Scouser. We don't get knocked out. Hey, I take that all day.
Remember, if you're enjoying our content and want to see more, be sure to leave a like before subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our weekly uploads. His weight gain. Paddy Pimblett is a pretty easygoing guy by nature, so easygoing in fact that he balloons up in weight dramatically in between fight camps. Seriously, it takes this man just a couple of weeks to be almost unrecognizable from the lean-framed lightweight who walks to the cage. As anyone who's watched Pimblett's post-fight press conference last time around will know, his love of all things fast food begins immediately after he leaves the cage, and following on from his show-stealing victory at UFC London, he was already diving headfirst into a pizza, eating as he answered questions from the media. Many experts are quick to note just how unhealthy it is to radically change your walk around so often, and crazier still is the fact that Paddy used to fight with great success down at 145 pounds. The public are split down the middle with where they exactly see Paddy the Baddy's ceiling within the UFC, but if there's one thing that most of us agree on, it's that his eating habits are truly wild and kind of unrealistic for a world-class athlete.
I actually counted it all. I had 10.6k calories yesterday. 10,670 calories. I woke up at 7 AM needing a That's how much I ate yesterday. Yeah, I did.
Playing with fire. If you know anything about Ilia Topuria, you'll know that he's a scary looking dude, a powerful, athletic featherweight whose earth-shattering knockout power even carried up to 155 pounds in his last outing. So how does this rising prospect get his mention in a video about Paddy Pimblett? Well, the two had a pretty public altercation during UFC London Fight Week, where Ilia confronted Pimblett over some comments that he made about him online. As you might expect, Ilia's team were with him at the time and they were quick to step in between both men to avoid things getting out of hand. Even still, Paddy managed to lob a bottle of hand sanitizer at Ilia as he was being dragged away. And as soon as Ilia managed to score a crazy knockout of Jai Herbert that weekend, he was quick to make a direct call out to Paddy in the hopes of settling the score. Pimblett, however, didn't seem too pushed, instead asking the UFC to improve his contract before a major step up in competition comes. Will they eventually fight? Who knows? But with the narrative already set on both men on win streaks, seeing these two men meet down the line would be a pretty interesting pairing. Doing the double. Fans were definitely left with their doubts over Paddy's abilities after he encountered more than a few problems in his debut matchup in the UFC. Major holes in his defense on the feet allowed his opponents to land some pretty heavy strikes. His chin really did stand as the last line of defense on that night, but of course he was able to rally and get the job done with a barrage of strikes. Vargas as his opponent, the pressure was on Pimblett to deliver, and once again, with the cage doors closed, it was far from straightforward. Vargas landed a hard shot early, causing Paddy to stagger briefly, but as soon as he got a hold of his opponent, Pimblett's stellar grappling abilities took over. If you watched his first fight, you'd be forgiven for assuming that Paddy was a brawler first and foremost. However, his BJJ has always been his go-to when it comes to getting his opponents out of there, and with the ease which he started slicing through Vargas' defenses definitely proved to be a good showcase of his true strengths as a grappler. Barstool Sports. How many UFC fighters sign 7-figure contracts with a reputable sports brand after just one fight? Well, Paddy Pimblett is clearly one of a kind in this regard. After shutting Luigi Vendramini's lights out after a tough opening round, Pimblett was almost immediately signed to join the team at Barstool Sports. In Pimblett, they saw some massive superstar potential and didn't think twice about putting their cash on the table then and there. With the social media following that numbers in the millions, getting Paddy the Baddie on board at such an early stage could well prove to be a masterstroke. The main thing though is that Pimblett continues to earn victory inside the cage. Sure, he has a few elements to add to his skill set, mainly in the striking department, but if Pimblett can really start to progress into the upper tier of the 155-pound division, his star potential could very well go through the roof. Underpaid. Few fighters in recent years have come into the top flight with quite as much attention as Paddy the Baddie. As soon as he landed in the UFC, a host of viral clips followed, with everyone mentioning of Pimblett being all guaranteed to drive traffic. When he managed to score his exhilarating come-from-behind victory against Luigi Vendramini, as you might expect, Pimblett was as in demand all week as anyone on the card, and when the time came to fight, he did not disappoint, scoring a first-round submission to earn himself a Performance of the Night bonus. What's crazy though is what happened in the days that followed. Once the promotion revealed the purses earned by each fighter, it became clear that perhaps the most popular fighter on the entire card was also by far away the most underpaid. Pimblett, according to reports, took home just $12,000 to show and $12,000 to win. For context, that is pretty much the lowest amount of money a UFC fighter will ever be signed to on their first contract. Naturally, the general public could not believe just how little Pimblett was earning. Thankfully, the UFC moved to offer him an improved contract in the lead up to his third-round fight, and though we do not know yet how much he's getting, it's pretty safe to assure that the promotion to understand his value. What's your own personal favorite Paddy Pimblett moment, and how far do you think he will go in the UFC? Let us know in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed today's video and want to see more, be sure to leave a like before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thank you for watching.